All right, so I'm going to show you how to analyze your data. Here we have the mass of the cart and the acceleration. And the important thing to notice here is that we never had a mass of 0. Our smallest mass was about 325 grams. So to see what's going on, we quickly highlight our data and we insert a chart. We would just want to see what sort of form our data is. Over here we have to make sure we choose a scatter plot, and we have to make sure that we have an x-axis, which is, it looks like the mass, and the y-axis is the acceleration. Go to customize, and under vertical axis make sure the silly box is unchecked. Okay, so here's what we have. We have a function that looks like this, and so we recognize that as a function that is a square, y equals 1 over x. So when you have data like this, we're going to try y equals 1 over x. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this graph because I don't need it. I just need to know kind of what shape it was. So I'm going to delete the graph. And so I'm going to copy my data, and I'm going to paste it over here. And instead of the mass, what I want to try is 1 over the mass, which will be in 1 over kilograms. And the way I find that is I write a formula. I say this cell equals 1 divided by this cell over here. So here's my formula, 1 divided by B7 in this case. That takes 1 over the mass. I can copy my formula down by grabbing this little thing in the corner and dragging it down. So now I have 1 over the mass and the acceleration. And if that is the proper relationship, if the acceleration is proportional to 1 over the mass, this will give me a straight line. So I'm going to highlight my data. I'm going to go to Insert, Chart. Again, I've got to go choose Scatter Plot because Google doesn't default to it. And then here you can see it got a little bit of trouble. I don't have an x-axis, so to kind of help things along, I'm going to move this graph down a little bit. And right here where it says x-axis, I'm going to highlight the data in my x-axis right there and hit OK. And then on my series, that's my y-axis, I'm going to remove the one that's there, and it says meters per second squared for there. So that looks right. I'm going to go to Customize, go to Vertical Axis, and make sure I uncheck this box. And when I do that, you'll see the data now, when we plot 1 over the mass, versus the acceleration versus 1 over the mass, we get a straight line. Now, this is point 3, here's point 2, point 1. We're not really sure where 0 is, so over on the Customize here, on the horizontal axis where it says minimum, I'm going to put in 0, so it just shows me on my axis here all the way to 0. So now you can see we've got a fairly straight line that's heading for 0, 0. We have a fairly good relationship there. So now just to finish up, under series, we go to Trendline. We get a nice straight line there. We scroll down a little bit. Under label, we say use equation. And the important thing here is we're looking for the slope. It's 54.9 or about 55. So I'm going to go with 55. So then I'm going to say custom. And I've got to write the equation, the math model for this. On my y-axis, I have acceleration. It equals the slope, 55, times on the x-axis, I have 1 over the mass. So my math model, it looks like that. I'm going to clean things up a little bit. Under legend, I'm going to make the font a little bit bigger. And I'm going to go to position and go to inside. That puts it in here. You guys know how to put titles and stuff on there. So just to remind you, on the y-axis, you're going to have the relation. You can have acceleration, and on the x-axis, you're going to have 1 over the mass. Okay, so you can see I've added my titles here, the relationship between acceleration and mass for a cart. My subtitle, on the y-axis, I have acceleration in meters per second, and here on the x-axis, I don't have mass. I have 1 over mass. So this is your math model right here. The acceleration equals 55 times 1 over the mass, except you might have a different slope. And back on your summary page, you can put in your math model and also the conclusion, which is we found the acceleration is proportional to 1 over the mass. Or another way to say that is the acceleration is inversely proportional to the mass. So what we found was that as the mass goes up, the acceleration goes down. They are inversely related. So that lets you finish up your lab.